Hey, this is Gary from Night Dreams Talk Radio. I want to welcome a new sponsor to our show, PhoenixShaving.com. I know what you're thinking, right? Oh, another disposable razor company. Well, the fact is they're not. You remember the razors that your father and his father shaved with? Did you ever notice they didn't have, well, the embarrassing razor burn or ingrowing hairs or the razor bumps after they shaved? Did you notice they were also relaxed after they were done shaving? Well, the problem is these big corporations want to sell you razor after razor after razor. Think about how much money you spend a year on razors. Or do you use electric razor? Then you're going to find out what razor burn is. So you need to check out Phoenix Shaving Starter Kits. They come complete with the soap, the brush, and a 2.5-month supply of blades, and the most important part of it, an all-metal razor, built to last generations. So, hey, you can donate it to one of your sons when they turn 18. Check out PhoenixShaving.com and tell them that Gary from Night Dream said, hey, I want one. That's PhoenixShaving.com now.
Check out Night Dream's website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com.
You're listening to Night Dreams Radio with Gary Anderson.
Hi, everybody. This is Gary. Well, it's the week for most people is almost over with. Just Saturday left, and then the new week starts. Hey, Tim, are you there?
I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you tell the listeners who you are and a little bit what happened to you in the 70s.
Okay, my name's Timothy Cullen, and I encountered a UFO in May of 1978, which was a rather large craft, and I ended up finding out about 20 years later I was abducted by said extraterrestrials within this craft. Because I found an alien implant in my body, and I had it removed by the late Dr-Roger-Leir, and I was the first patient of his to talk about said surgery, and appeared on several television programs with him. It started, like I said, I encountered a craft across the road in front of the wife and I, came down under the telephone lines and over the fence and lit up the ground and was out and beside our car and then back and forth, and it appeared to be about 100-foot long, 20-foot wide, 10-foot high when it crossed in front of me and looked like a cigar. And then when it got out to the side, it was more of like of an inverted pie tin. And now that I recall, it moved kind of strangely. But I was driving home, and I happened to stop on this road, and then I backed up a ways to get a better look at it. And when I got to a spot in the road where I could see it a little better, I put the car in the park, and my wife and I were looking at it, and two bright lights came on, one right above the other, and kind of eliminated our peripheral vision. But I sat there and looked at it for what I thought was 4 or 5 minutes and kind of wondered about things and whatever. And then inexplicably, I turned around and looked at my wife and I said, well, we might as well go to town. And she was quite anxious and she agreed with me. So I put this car in the gear that I was driving and drove to town. It was interesting thing about the car, it had belonged to her great uncle because I'd been in a car wreck about 6 weeks before that had some serious injuries for me, and by this it belonged to her uncle, and he had survived the Titanic and had been pulled out of the water, and he had passed away in March of that year, and my father-in-law got me this vehicle after I wrecked my one. But anyway, we put the car into gear and we came to town and didn't think much of it. Encountered a flying saucer, and that's about the way things stood for quite a while.
When did you?
Approximately.
Hey, I was going to ask you a question. Okay, not to change the subject. Your uncle was on the Titanic.
She had a great uncle that was on the Titanic.
Oh wow!
My father-in-law who bought me the car, it was his uncle.
Oh wow! Did you ever hear any stories about the Titanic and stuff
Oh,
when you were
yeah.
a kid?
Oh, well, not when I was a kid, but after I married my wife.
Oh, that's right.
My wife was from Wahoo, Nebraska, and they have quite her great uncle was quite a figure there in that town. They called him Titanic Johnson, and the Sanders County Museum there has quite a bit of stuff on his ordeal and surviving the Titanic. It was to hear about it. It's interesting.
Oh wow! I mean, that is so rich when you can hear stories that even like the movies would never even talk about, or the books. I mean, from a firsthand witness that was on it, watching it sink, I take it he was in the water himself.
Yes, he was in the water, and we went to Sweden a couple years ago and got more of the stories. His one brother that he was with over here, my wife's grandfather. They didn't communicate a lot, and Carl didn't. The stories were a little bit, and after I've heard the ones when in Sweden, I'd really, because because he had a sister over there. He had only two of the boys came over here, and they had three siblings over there, and one was a sister. And Carl wrote quite a few letters to her about his escapades and, what he got him involved and everything. It's quite interesting. Oh, yeah, it's very interesting. And, I look back now and I find out what a curiosity it was that to have that happen to me in such a manner.
Oh, wow. That is so awesome.
Yeah. A lot of things in the movies and stuff that you see on the Titanic sinking, I think quite a bit of it was taken from his notes and letters because he was a young man, about 20, and he was in the third class.
No, he was lucky. He was lucky to survive.
Somehow,
yeah.
Well, it was interesting on how he got in on the Titanic and to begin with, and what he'd done, which I won't go into. But he was on there, but he was up north to front. So when the ship hit, he was able to come up and then went back down to find stuff, and then still was able to come up, and not be trapped below the deck like maybe some of the third people were if they done some of the things that you see. It was very interesting, and hearing what they said over there about his stories. I mean, I could see why he was very reluctant to talk about it. I mean, some of it's right out of a horror movie. I mean, there's no other way around it.
Oh yeah, I mean the people jumping to their death, and not just that too. From everything I read, because I read a lot about the Titanic. I didn't rely too much on the movies, because they embellished certain things. But like the third class and and below passengers, they were locked in. So I mean, if they didn't get out before,
they had to be up there. Yeah, they were shafted.
Yeah, I mean,
when they realized they was running out of lifeboats, but yes, he made a boat. He was in the water, and he was a young man from Sweden, and so I'm sure he was pretty fit. But there was a dirigible boat B, which came by a little later, and they had pulled him from the water. And to tell the story is. There was a man and his wife, and they pulled them from the water, but the wife didn't survive.
Oh wow!
And when she passed, then her husband, in 40 minutes, his hair turned completely white, and he went stark, raving mad, and they had to kill him.
Oh wow!
And there was water in the bottom of the boat, and probably didn't have, and it's wet and stuff, but he was able to stand and able to survive because the water in this bottom of this boat was warmed by the bodies. So it really kept him from getting their feet getting super cold, these people, and they were able to survive with not contracting a great amount of hypothermia. Is that totally amazing or what?
That is. I mean, just to have to go through something like that. I mean, just think about. I'm sure he had nightmares for years and years after that because I mean, from what I read about all the bodies that were floating around there, it was horrible.
It's I've looked at his papers and it's true. It's true. Every bit of it. It's true. I mean it. Oh yeah, I mean it was learning that is quite an eye opener. And like I say, to look back, now and then be able to look back and realize that when I encountered a UFO, I'm in this car, and it's connected to this event. It is kind of an interesting quirk to me and to think about.
How things, in life kind of run together in strange ways. Tim, it really does.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Strange ways. Another thing is another movie. Then I got involved. I got to watching after my abduction and the learning. In 20 years after my encounter, then learning that I had to be abducted means I had an implant in my body, and now my wife was with me. Was she abducted? I presume so, but we really haven't checked her out, and she has no interest per se as to whatever. You just go with the flow. But it was then when I find out that I just can't talk about this seeing UFO, that I was that we've had made contact of some sorts, and wonder about the things that I wonder about in my life. To get to another movie, then I several years ago I went and Travis Walton came to Denver, so I went up to see Travis Walton, and he spoke about the movie he was in, Fire in the Sky, and how I was wondering if how it was portrayed on the screen, and told the subtle differences of what he really encountered, and then a little bit of Hollywood. I mean, they're trying to say this basic core of the story, but have to finesse it up a little bit for whatever, or show a point of view of somebody wanting to express, or thinks it makes the story a little better. Well, so it was quite interesting there too.
Hey Tim, like the implant you had, I mean, how long did it take before you realized there was something in your body? I mean, from that night when you saw that UFO, or that next morning, or whatever. Well, I mean, was there any signs of it? When you got home that night, that you, like a wound or anything, or just out of curiosity?
No. Now, I had a car accident 6 weeks before that, and there was a extremely paranormal event for me. Probably one of the most major paranormal events that ever happened in my life. I was aware of the raccoon happened a week before it happened in a dream. But
things like that do happen, and that is alone right there is kind of eerie. When you have like when you see something, in a dream. And you wake up and you don't know if it's real or not. And then all of a sudden, like a day later, a week later, or 2 weeks later, everything plays out identical to what that dream was.
Yeah, when you deja vu into something, and it's happened to me a lot in my lifetime. So it's really not abnormal, but to have me play such a major part